And with that, I'd like to officially welcome all of you to your RingCentral User Basics training. I'm Tara Hanna. I'm a RingCentral training specialist. And the intention of our training today is to help give you the foundation of knowledge you'll need to use the RingCentral system. And if you have no idea what RingCentral is, we're going to be your new communications platform. So phone calls, for instance, will be through RingCentral. You'll also be able to schedule, join, and start video meetings from our platform. So we're going to provide an overview as to how to use our tools and those basic features that you'll need as you're actually making calls today. Now, I do highly encourage all of you to participate. This session is for you. So I'd love to hear what questions you have and help put you at ease when you start using our new platform. On screen, you'll see we're using a RingCentral video meeting, and you've got controls located down at the bottom of the screen. You can mute and unmute yourself. For those of you who've called in, you can actually press *6 on your phone to unmute if you need to do that. I'm going to put that code in the chat just in case anyone needs it. You can also let me know you have a question by sending it to me via the chat. If you click on this chat option, the chat panel will open up on the right, and you'll see the messages that I've sent out thus far. I want to make sure everyone has found that, so please take a second to go ahead and click on that chat and send me a message. Say hi, hello, your favorite color or sports team, really whatever you'd like. Let's just make sure you found that chat and you're able to send a message. Hello, Beverly. And Matthew, Shirley. All right, I see those rolling in. Thanks, guys. I appreciate everyone. Now, there's a couple of other ways you can send communications to me as well. Here, it says raise hand on my screen, but we actually just updated this feature. It came out yesterday. It'll now say reactions, and it has a little smiley face. And when you click on reactions, you can raise your hand to let me know you'd like to participate, maybe ask a question, for instance. But you can also engage with me by telling me to speed up or slow down, answering yes or no to questions I might ask. Or you can throw an emoji at me. Give me a smiley face if you're feeling good with things. Give me a frowny face if you're a little lost. But I can use those to help gauge where you are, so feel free to use those if you'd like. I'm also going to be demonstrating through the duration of our training today, so I want to make sure you can see what I'm sharing easily. Make sure you've expanded this video meeting window so that it takes up a full monitor, but you can also adjust your viewing options so that it's as easy for you to see as possible. Take a moment to do that now if you've not already done so. And I mentioned that today is really a foundational course. We want to get you those basics that you'll need to use our system. But I recognize some of you may be like me who want to dive a little bit deeper, or maybe you need to based on your job. So I will be sharing some resources throughout our training to help those of you who do want to dive a little bit deeper, or maybe need to get a refresher on something that we've covered. The first resource I have on screen here, and I'm going to urge you all to bookmark or save or at least copy this link so you can access it later. And that is our training dashboard. Here you'll see there's a Get Started section that houses really short targeted videos and quick guides on simple things like setting up your voicemail greeting, for instance. Our university site houses online training, so you can go through this class, but the online version if that's how you learn best. And then we also host webinars on a regular basis covering a variety of topics. So that's a great way to stay on top of updates or maybe dive a little bit deeper. All of those resources are totally free and all of you have access to them. So again, if you haven't already taken a copy of that link, do so before we leave today. With that, let's go ahead and get into the good stuff. On screen, I've got our agenda. Don't worry, we're not going to cover everything here. But we are going to talk about activating your RingCentral extension. I believe the majority of you, if not all of you, have done this already, but we want to make sure it's recorded so that if anyone has to watch this in the future, they've got that information. We're also going to talk about our video platform and the phone platform. We have an application you can use for phone calls and for video meetings, so we will be talking about that tool. We're also going to be talking about your desk phone and how you can use that, of course, to make and receive calls, And we'll tackle your basic extension settings. That's where we're going to talk about setting up your work hours and what happens when someone calls you. We'll also
Hey,
talk
Tara.
about your voicemail greeting there. Yes, go ahead, Darren.
I'm sorry, it's Darren. So on the activate the extension, that's going to be done on the back end. So
Sure.
we don't need to spend a lot of time on that, but it might not be bad to review, but that's going to be done for most people automatically.
Excellent. Love to hear that. Thank you, Darren. So keep that in mind, guys. This may not be relevant for you specifically, but at least that way it'll be there for the recording. And for the person who just typed into the chat, we do not have the phones yet. Not to worry. Even if you don't have the phones yet, I'm going to have a resource for you so you'll have it at hand when you're actually using your phone. As we go through your training today, I don't want you to try to memorize everything I'm talking about because it's not going to work, just as a quick tip. So I'm going to be sharing resources so that you'll have them at hand when you're actually using the system, but hopefully this will at least give you an overview of what you can do and help get you set up for success. With that, we're going to dive on in. Again, I'm going to go really quickly through this first portion with activating your extension since that's primarily done on the back end for you and not relevant to you guys right now. But an email is sent out when we're activating your extension. It comes from support@ringcentral.com. All you need to do with that email is select Setup Account. When you select Setup Account, we're going to walk you through our express setup process where we would ask you to create a password to log into the system, unless your company uses single sign-on, a PIN to check voicemail messages from the desk phone, and a security question and answer to help us reset your information if you ever forget it. We might also, when you select Continue, ask you for your emergency calling registered location. This location is the address that we send to emergency services if you're calling 911 from your desk phone. So we want to make sure that address is correct for you. That can always be updated on the back end, so it's not something to worry too much about. Plus, if you are calling 911, they're going to confirm that address with you. So if you did not go through this process and it was handled for you on the back end, don't worry about not being able to answer this question personally. You're still all set. And that's all there is to activating the RingCentral account. The next step would be to download the RingCentral application itself. Darren or Gina, do you guys know if your users will need to download that, or are you pushing the download for them?
We are going to push it for them. It'll be on everyone's desktop.
I love that. It makes it so much easier.
Right. So the app is for the phone as well. We're going to take a look at that. For any employee that has a company-sponsored phone, we'll be able to push that as well.
Gotcha. So you'll have users on the mobile phone too. Good to note. All right. So the application, when it's downloaded to your desktop, you're going to see an icon that looks just like this on the left side of my screen. It's going to be a blue R with an orange box inside of it. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that application. You're seeing my actual computer desktop live right now, and you'll see I have that icon here. It says RingCentral. It's got that blue R with the orange box. Now I'm going to open this up and we'll take a quick tour of the app before we take a look at your desk phone. I've already logged in, and here you'll see that application. I like to work at this on a top-down, left-right method. So taking a look at the top, you'll see your company name. This is my demo account, so it's called Happy Panda Training. Going from left to right, you'll see there's a search function. So you can search for a contact name in here if you'd like to call a particular person that's in your contacts. If we follow that even further to the right, you're going to see there are 3 circular icons. The first one looks a little bit like a waffle. That's a dial pad. You could use that to start a phone call, no matter where you are in the app. We'll take a look at that in a bit. There's also a plus symbol where you can start a new action. Maybe you want to start a new video meeting, for instance, or you need to get a fax out. You can start those actions from here. And then the third option is just going to show your initials when you first log in. This is where you access your profile and your phone status. Phone status can be pretty important, so I want to make sure we talk about that here. When you first log in each day, your phone status is going to be available, meaning you're not on a call. You're theoretically available if someone's going to be reaching out to you. This will update to say on a call or in a meeting if you are on a call or in a video meeting from your account. But you can also manually change that status. If maybe you're working after hours to check voicemails and emails, you don't really want people bothering you, you can go invisible. It'll make it look to your colleagues like you're logged out for the day, but you can still make and receive calls if you need to. You can also go into Do Not Disturb, which I was in a moment ago, and you'll see there's a red banner at the top of the screen telling me I'm in Do Not Disturb. This is kind of like your get out of jail free card for phone calls. So long as Do Not Disturb is turned on, if someone calls you, that call is going straight to voicemail. It's not going to pass go. It's not going to collect $200. It's not going to ring your desk phone. That call just goes straight to voicemail, leaving you undisturbed so you can work on your project or continue a meeting without worrying about that phone ringing. But it's really important to know that RingCentral is never going to turn this off for you. So when you are ready to receive calls again, you need to either select Turn Off here or change your phone status back to Available. Going down the left side, you'll notice we have a taskbar here that has all kinds of icons in it with the different features you'll see in the RingCentral application. Your team is not using Message, so we are not going to cover that today, but you will see video and phone. We're going to talk about fax as well. You can see your contacts. And if we look a little further down, you're even going to see a little settings gear wheel. Now with settings, we're not going to go too in depth on these, but a couple of things I like to point out for personal preference. Customize tabs. This allows me to reorder what options I see here on the left so that they make sense to me. For instance, you guys aren't using Message, so maybe you don't even want Message to show up on the left. I can click this and drag it into the More category, and you'll see it's gone from that list on the left. Maybe you use phone more than video. You can move it up to the top. Really whatever you'd like. You can also adjust the notifications and sounds that you see and hear when people are reaching out to you. I have pretty much all of my notifications and sounds disabled because I've got to demonstrate to people like you, and we don't want those going off while I'm in a training. But you can adjust these without turning them off in a way that suits your personal preferences. So when you do get access to the application, I recommend coming in here and figuring out what works best for you. We're going to come back to these settings a little bit later to discuss those phone settings, but that's it for our quick tour and our review of your phone status. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right, not seeing any come through yet, but if you do, don't hesitate to get it into the chat. I promise I don't bite. All right, we are first going to go ahead and take a look at your desk phone. I know that there's a couple of models that your team is using, but today we're going to take a look at one specific model, and that is the Yealink T46U. Most of these phones you'll see look pretty similar. The difference is some of these have color screens versus black and white, some are touch screens, and some are not. So if yours isn't exactly this model, don't worry, the functionality will still be very similar. And if you've used a desk phone for a job before, it's going to be pretty similar. You're going to see there's an LED light in the top right corner that's going to blink if you've got an incoming call or a voicemail. There's a digital display that will change depending on if you're on a call or not. And on the left and right side of the screens, you'll see there's some buttons. The first two in the top left are going to be where your active calls are stored. So if you've got a call, it might be on line 1 or line 2. But these other 8 buttons can actually be programmed as speed dials. You can program them with an internal contact or one of your colleagues. And not only will it function as a speed dial, but the button will also light up red if that person is on a call. So you know it's probably not a good time to reach them. I'll show you how we program these when we get to the application. Below that digital display, you'll see there's 4 buttons that we call soft keys, not because they're soft and fluffy. They're not, they're just buttons, but their function is software dependent. It really just depends on what menu you're on for what options you'll see for these. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Then you'll also see additional buttons on that desk phone, and I'm going to zoom in here to make it a little easier to see. There's a headset button. If you have a headset connected, you can use that to make or receive a call using the headset. You can mute and unmute yourself. You can check your voicemail messages. There's a hold button so you can place people on hold or bring them back. There's a redial button, transfer, and of course a speakerphone. You'll also see volume keys. If you're not on an active call, those volume keys will adjust how loud the ringer is when someone calls you. If you are on a call, it'll adjust how loud you're hearing that other person. Now, I'm going to go through this section pretty quickly, guys. Again, please don't try to memorize this. I will share a job aid with you in just a moment that you'll have at hand when you're actually making and receiving calls. But just as a quick overview, we have these lovely navigation buttons that you can use to go through the different menus you'll see on screen. If you want to set up or check your voicemail, there's a message button here. When you select this, you'll just want to follow the audio prompts. We are going to ask you for a PIN that was set up for you in order to check your voicemail. If you don't know what that PIN is, don't worry. I'll show you where you can set that in the application. There's also a redial button. So when you select redial, you're going to get a list of all of your recent calls, and you can use those navigation buttons to scroll up or down and select the OK button on the number you'd like to redial. When it comes time to making and receiving calls, it's pretty easy. You can pick up the handset, select the headset or speaker buttons, and then just dial the number you'd like to call. You do not need to dial a 9 or a 1 to dial outside. Just give us the area code and phone number, and that's all we care about. To answer a call, you also just pick up the handset or select the headset or speaker, depending on how you want to answer that call. When you're on a call, these buttons here, the soft keys, will change. You'll have an option for transfer, hold, conference, or to end that call. Taking a look at call transfer, if you need to transfer a call elsewhere, you'll actually have 3 different options for how to transfer. A warm transfer lets you talk to the person you're transferring to let them know what's going on before you actually transfer the call. The blind transfer, also known as a cold or direct transfer, does not let you talk to that person. In fact, they don't even know you've transferred the call. They just get an incoming call with the person you transferred's caller ID. So that's great when you don't need to share information. You will also have the ability to transfer directly to a colleague's voicemail. So if you know that Darren is busy and in a meeting, you can transfer directly to Darren's voicemail, bypassing that ringing. Taking a look at each of those 3 steps, a warm transfer while you're on a call, you just click the transfer button, either the soft key or that physical button here on the bottom right. Then dial the extension or phone number of the person you want to transfer to. In the meantime, we're going to place your other caller on hold while we call out to the person you're going to transfer to. You can have your conversation with them when they answer, and when you're ready to send that call to them, you just click that transfer button to send that call off. Blind transfer works the same way, except you're not going to wait for that person to answer. As soon as you've dialed the extension or phone number, click that transfer button to actually send that call off. And then lastly, if we're going to be doing a transfer to voicemail, you'll start with that same transfer button, but before you dial your colleague's extension number, you're going to want to dial *0. So if Darren's extension was 5874, and you wanted to transfer to Darren's voicemail, you can dial *0 5874 and select transfer to send that call to Darren's voicemail. But what if you don't need to transfer? You just need to bring someone else on the line. You can do a conference or 3-way call from this phone. In fact, you can actually have up to 10 people on this call at once. To bring someone else on the call, you're going to press the conference button. We're going to place your original caller on hold. Dial the extension or phone number of the person that you would like to conference in. We're then going to call them, and when they answer, you get to have your conversation with them. You then just press conference again to merge those calls together. If you need to add additional people, you just repeat that process over and over and over. Jonathan, I see you just shared your screen. Was there a question that you had? Or did you just accidentally press a button?
Going press the button.
Gotcha. No worries. Just be mindful if you don't mind. All right. Going to reshare here for us. Okay. So that's it for conferencing. And that's actually it for this phone. Now, I mentioned I don't expect you to memorize this information. Please don't try, it'll just break your brain. But I do have a resource that I'm going to share in the chat. This is one that I do recommend you bookmark or you save so you have at hand when you're actually using that phone. But here you'll see this is our quick guide that points out those different buttons on the phone, as well as those different actions you can take. I do want to point out this resource is for a slightly different model. This is for the S model and not the U model, which you guys will be using. But the only difference physically is that the S model has one USB port. Your phone is actually going to have two. So you don't have to worry about that, but this job aid will definitely get you taken care of. That's it for our desk phone, everyone. Do we have any questions? Quiet group. I hope that means you're all feeling really comfortable. If you do have questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But we're going to go ahead and pivot to our other tool, which is that application for phones. So with your RingCentral phone number, you're going to be able to make and receive calls either from your physical desk phone or from your application. And for the application, that can be on your computer desktop or on a mobile device or both. The mobile device has the exact same features as the desktop application. The only difference is it looks a bit different since it's a smaller screen. But through the application, you can easily access your voicemails. You can also send and receive faxes and texts, of course, depending on your business needs. Now I'm going to go back to the application so we can see what does this actually mean. And I'm going to select phone. When I've selected phone, you'll see I have a new menu on the right that has different phone options. I can view my call history, for instance. Under all calls, I'll see all inbound, outbound, and missed calls. And you might notice as I hover over these, I have additional options like starting a video call with this person, or giving them a phone call, or deleting that line item. If that number is from, or if that call is to or from someone that's not in my contacts, like this number here from Danville, Georgia, I'll also have the option to add them, or even block that phone number if that's necessary. Missed calls is going to show you the exact same information, but just for those missed calls. Since we know those tend to need urgent follow-up, we've got a category just for those for you. And if your team will have any calls recorded, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. You can access those call recordings under the call recording section. There's a play button so you can play that recording and hear that call. You can even, if you select the more icon, which is those 3 horizontal dots, download that recording to your computer. That way you can share it or save it to a client file if that's ever needed. Voicemail is an easy way to access your voicemail. If someone does leave you a voicemail, you can check it on your desk phone. You can check it here in the app. And RingCentral is also going to send you an email with the transcript of that voicemail. So you're going to be able to check those a number of different ways. But here you'll see a list of all of your voicemails, and any new voicemails have a dot to the left of the name. So it's quick and easy to see which ones are new. In my case, that's from Callie Lily, Hamburger, and Merry-Go-Round. There's a play icon if I wanted to hear that voicemail, but maybe I'm in a meeting and it's not a good time for me to have my speakers going off. I can instead select this transcript icon if it's available, and this will give me a synopsis of what was said. We don't guarantee that these are 100% accurate because it does depend on things like accents, how quick the voicemail was, and common spellings, but they are really close. In fact, the only thing wrong with this one is my name is Tara with 3 A's, not Tara with 2, but no one ever gets that right, so I'll cut it some slack. And you'll notice additional actions like calling that person, deleting that voicemail. You can also download voicemails to your computer if you need to save those or share them. Next up, we have our HUD. The HUD stands for Head Up Display. And in here, we're just going to focus on this section that says extensions. You can program up to 100 of your colleagues' names here. You program them by selecting the Head and Shoulders icon in the top right that says Add an Extension. And then you just tell us the name of that colleague. So for instance, maybe I want to add Martin Red. Martin Red will now be added to this list. Why do I need this list? Well, it's going to tell you the phone status of the colleagues you have listed. So if I needed help, I can see at a glance that Emma Gonna Go is in a meeting. So it's probably not a good time to reach out to her. But Laura Kraft is available. So is Merry Go Round. So I might want to reach out to them instead. It will also tell you if a colleague's in Do Not Disturb, or if they are on a call, you get a little bit of information like the name of the person they're talking to. This also functions as a speed dial. You'll notice I've got those actions on the right to call that person if needed. This is also how you can program those line keys on your desk phone. I mentioned you can program your colleagues' names. When you update this, those first 8 names on this list will update to your desk phone. So on my phone, it would have Martin Red, then Merry Go Round, then Laura, and so on. Maybe I needed to have Callie Lily at the top because she's my boss. I could drag and drop Callie Lily to the top. And then when my phone updates, it'll show Callie Lily at that first slot on that desk phone. So this is a great feature, very handy if you need to keep an eye on colleagues' statuses. Darren or Gino, does your team have a need to have large audio-only conference meetings? Or is that something that's not necessary?
That does come up on occasion where people do ask for it, where they need more than 10 people.
Okay, excellent. So if that is your situation, then this section here, conference calls, is going to be your friend. You have a conference bridge room. That room is always open for you, and you're welcome to invite people to it whenever you'd like. This conference bridge can host up to 1,000 people at a time. If you'd like to schedule a meeting or start a conference meeting, you have the options just by hovering over your room title. I can start an instant one here now if I'd like, but if I'd rather invite people or perhaps schedule one, I can select the option to invite. I then have the option to invite by email or message. Important to note, this does not include a scheduling function. So if you want to schedule that meeting for next Monday, for instance, you would take the information from this invite, which I'll drag on screen so you can see it, and you can copy that into any invitation, meeting application, calendar application that you might use. But the dial-in number will stay the same. You'll have your own host code, and here you'll see those participant codes that anyone might need to join. Very easy to use, but everyone does have that ability if that's necessary. Does anybody have any questions on the items we see here on this left menu? Thanks, Cameron. I appreciate that. All right. If you do, feel free to put those in the chat, but let's go ahead and take a look at actually making a call. Renee, will your current voicemail be able to transfer over to the new phone when installed? Great question, Renee. Sadly, no, your voicemail greeting cannot just transfer over automatically. However, if you do have that voicemail greeting saved on your computer, you can import that greeting. It's not an automatic process, but it's one that you can do if you'd like. I also like to point out that any voicemail messages that you might have saved will not transfer over. So you'll want to make sure that on whatever platform you're using currently, you've downloaded those voicemails to your computer or another device to save those long term. So I know that might not be the answer you're looking for, but hopefully that answered the question for you, Renee. Good question. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and take a look at making and receiving a call. You might have noticed there's a button here that actually says make a call. You can click that to start the call process. But I also mentioned our waffle icon in the top right. That's the dial pad. You can use these interchangeably. The only difference is this make a call button only shows up on this phone page. Shirley, are there any technical restrictions for people you invite to conference calls? Great question. No. You are limited to 1,000 people, so I suppose that could be considered a technical restriction. But those you invite can be on any platform anywhere in the world, so long as they're able to join via the details that are going to be listed here. So they will have a dial-in number and a participant access code that they'll need. If that dial-in number doesn't work for them, maybe they're international, we also have a link to where they can access our international dial-in numbers. Hopefully that answered that question for you, Shirley. Thanks for asking. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click make a call so we can start a phone call. And you'll see I have a pop-up that shows on screen. This is my dial pad, and I can use this to make a call. At the top, I can use my keyboard to enter in a phone number, an extension, or a contact name. Again, just like on your desk phone, you don't need to worry about dialing a 9 or a 1 before a phone number if you're calling out. But I prefer calling by name, especially if that person is in my contacts, just because I can't remember phone numbers anymore. So let's say I want to call my colleague Santiago. As I start typing Santiago's name, my results are going to limit to just that person and any phone numbers I've got on file for them. Now, Santiago is not a real person. They're a test account so that I can give them a call and demonstrate. But they are listed as a colleague in the system for me. So they'll have both an extension and a direct number. Doesn't really matter. You can use either of these to reach your colleagues. I'm going to dial by the extension just by clicking on this line here.
Please hold while I try to connect you.
And RingCentral has called Santiago. I'm now on an active call with that person. And you'll see I have some on-call features. If you use a cell phone, some of these will likely look pretty familiar to you. You can mute and unmute yourself. There's a keypad if you need that based on the number you've dialed. And you have audio options. I have a few different microphones and speakers connected because my job is to talk to people in video meetings all day long. You do want to have, or we do recommend that you have a headset connected to your computer if you're going to be using it to make and receive calls. Any headset works or set of earbuds. We don't have any requirements for those specifically at RingCentral. So long as it works for your computer, that'll work for us. But if you're on a call and you're having issues with one of your devices, you can come in here and choose a different device as needed. You can also adjust that on-call volume. Maybe that person is screaming into the phone. You can drop that volume down, or vice versa. You can move it up if they're being super quiet. The add option is how you can start a conference call through the application. When I select this, RingCentral is going to ask me, who you going to call? And not Ghostbusters, because that's not real. But you can list a phone number, an extension, or of course, a contact's name. I'm going to list my friend here, Rose. And once I select Rose's number,
Please hold while I try to connect you.
RingCentral has done two things. First, it's called Rose, as you can see here. But I still have Santiago. However, Santiago's been placed on hold, as indicated by this small pause button. That way I can talk to Rose without Santiago hearing. I can share information. I can set expectations. I can make sure Rose is just available. If Rose is, I have an option down at the bottom to merge to conference. Once I select that, we're all going to be on a call together, and I can actually repeat that whole process again to have a total of 10 people on the call, including myself. Now, if Rose is not available, I can end just Rose's portion of the call by selecting End Call right here. And I'll still have Santiago, though Santiago is on hold, as indicated by this nice little button. That button's also how I bring him back from hold, so I'm going to click that, and I've got him back. Beverly has asked a question in the chat. Do your computers and phones connect to Bluetooth headphones? That's a great question, Beverly, and not one that I can answer just off base because it really depends on your computer. I will tell you that your desk phones do come with USB ports. So if you have a Bluetooth headphone that works via USB, you can certainly do that, so long as it's compatible with Yealink. Darren, I saw you came off of mute. Did you have anything you wanted to contribute there?
You actually answered exactly how I was going to answer. Well, I was going to add that the computers that we have at Free do not have Bluetooth built in. Some of the laptops do, but the desktops don't. And we are currently working with RingCentral testing some of those Bluetooth USB devices. And once we have that narrowed down, we will send that out.
Excellent. Thanks, Darren. I'm psychic. Appreciate the help. Thanks for the question, Beverly. Hopefully that answered it for you. Yeah, great news. All right, next you're going to see there's a video option. I'm having this meeting with Santiago, but you know what? I just need to see his face to be able to get some facial recognition or see his body language, or maybe I need to share my screen. I can switch this to a video meeting by selecting either switch to video call or share screen, depending on what I need to do. We'll talk about video meetings more in just a moment. Before we do, though, let's talk about more. Here you're going to find a bunch of other fun options. If I just need to do some research or grab a cup of coffee, I can put my caller on hold at any point in time. Here's that hold option. I can also transfer them if I'm not the best person to help. If I select transfer, RingCentral is again going to ask, who are you going to call? Once you tell us, we're then going to give you 3 different options for how to transfer. The names are different, but these are the exact same options you had on your desk phone. The ask first transfer is the warm transfer, where you get to talk to that other person. Functionally, this looks just like the conference call. We're going to place Santiago on hold while we call Rose, and if Rose is available for that transfer, there's going to be an icon down at the bottom of the screen for you to click to send that call off. Transfer is your blind, cold, or direct transfer, whatever you want to call that. As soon as I click that, I am done. I am freed up to make and take other calls, and Rose gets an incoming call with Santiago on the line. The voicemail is available if you're transferring to a colleague. That bypasses any ringing and sends that call straight to voicemail. So pretty easy. Other options you see here are record. Darren or Gino, will your team need to do any on-demand call recordings?
That's a good question. We currently don't have that, but I could see where there'd be some cases that we might want that.
Okay, then let's take a look. Now, if you need to record a call, the recording will only start at the point where you click record here. And once you click that, an audible recording or message is going to play that everyone on the call can hear, informing them that the call is indeed being recorded. That satisfies the varying states requirements for notifying people of recorded calls.
This call is being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, please disconnect at this time.
Now, there is a record option at the top. That's my visual reminder that I'm recording the call. It's also how I can stop it. Maybe I just wanted to record an important conversation about an upcoming project so I don't have to take notes. When I don't need that recording anymore, I can stop it by clicking this.
This call has been recorded.
Another brief message will play indicating the recording is stopped, and that's it. After the call ends, give it a couple of minutes, and that recording is going to be available under call recordings. Next up is park. Darren or Gino, does your team use call parking?
We have that option. I don't think it's being used, but it's good to go over that real quick so everybody understands what it is.
Sure. Olivia, I see your question. I'll tackle that in just a moment. So call parking is often used in place of transferring. If you are not the best person to handle the call, you can park it. And when it's parked, it's going to get moved to a different extension. So your line is freed up so you can make and take other calls. The extension number is randomly assigned. It can be anywhere from extension star 800 to star 899. So you're going to want to make note of that message you see here. I can then tell my colleague, hey, I got a call for you on star 821. They can then pick that call up. However, they got to do it within 5 minutes. 300 seconds. If they have not answered that call in that time frame, it's going to come back to me. So I don't generally recommend this if transferring works for you guys, because it can come back to you and it might be a little confusing for your caller. But if that's something that works great for you, obviously feel free to use that. To retrieve a parked call, you just access your dial pad and dial that extension, including that star. I now have that parked call back.
So
last option.
I could think of another scenario. So if you receive a call on your desk phone and you need to be in another room to help with that call, you could put it on park and then pick up that phone call on that other phone.
Yeah, that could also be a fantastic use case, especially if you're not going to be using the mobile application. If you're using the mobile application, that's usually my recommendation anyway, because we all keep our cell phones in our pockets or on us in some other way. But if that's not an option for you, that's a great use case, Darren. There's also a couple of other options for moving calls, and that's really what Flip is all about. So I'm taking this call on my computer, but maybe I need to move this to my desk phone, or maybe I work from home and I want to move it to my home phone line so I can take it while I'm sitting on my sofa. I can click Flip, and any numbers that have been programmed into the system for you are going to be available. Your desk phone will be listed there by default. And if I click this, the caller is going to be placed on hold. My desk phone is going to ring, and when I answer, I'll have the option to retrieve that call there. I'll show you how to program additional numbers for this when we get to your extension settings. Now, I know that some of you may be using a mobile device, so I'm going to take a second and show you a really fun feature if you are going to have that application downloaded. Let's say I'm on that call on my computer. If I open up my mobile application and I'm logged in, I'm going to see this option at the top that says switch call to this device. If I tap that, the call will instantly and seamlessly move to my mobile phone. No holds needed. So the caller doesn't even know I've moved them to a different device. So that could be a great idea or option instead of having to park a call potentially. I also use this if I'm working from home and my dog needs a walk while I'm on a meeting with my boss. So that's it for our on-call options. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the application. And notice, even though I moved away, I didn't lose my call. It's actually in the top right where it says unknown now. If I click that, I get my call dial pad. I'm going to hang up. And I do want to show you guys what an incoming call looks like as well. Now, keep in mind, I've turned off the ringing sound we'd normally hear, but you'll see there's a pop-up that shows on screen with the caller ID, if available. And then I have my answering options. I can ignore, send to voicemail. Under more, I can forward it to my desk phone or any other devices. I also had the option to answer. And you'll see I actually have a second call coming through right now as well. This is an unknown number, so I'm just going to go ahead and ignore it. And now we're back to this call. I'm going to go ahead and answer this one. And you'll see all of my on-call options are the exact same. And you just got an accidental sneak peek at the next thing I was going to tell you guys, which is the fact that you can have more than one call at once. You can actually have up to 9 calls. When you have those calls at the top, there'll be an option that says call list. And when you click on it, you'll see a list of all of those calls, so you can toggle between them if needed. Now, the last thing with calling, Olivia has asked a question if there is a paging feature where you can page multiple phones in the event of an emergency. Olivia, RingCentral does have a paging feature, but that's really going to be for the desk phones specifically. It can either page to desk phones or to an overhead paging system that's built into the building. That's something that has to be set up on the back end by your admin team, though. So I do want to confirm, Darren or Gino, do you know if you guys have that set up, or is that something you're looking into?
We will look into it. Olivia, we could work with you on that as well. Here's the problem. We've seen this in the past where people kind of test the paging system and a page goes out to all phones by accident. So we have to be very careful who we activate this on or for.
Yeah. And RingCentral actually has some limitations in place specifically because we know that situation comes up. But Olivia, if that's something that does get enabled and you'd like to learn more about, I'll show you a resource in a bit that you can just search paging and you'll get the step-by-step instructions on how to do it. Thanks for asking. That's a great question. All right, everyone, that is it for phones. I don't see any other questions came through. So I do want to talk about faxing real quick. If you need to fax, or if someone needs to send you a fax, your phone will work as a fax number, so they can send that fax directly to you. If, of course, that's needed by your business and you don't have other fax resources. To send a fax, when you go to fax, you'll see there is a small little plus symbol to the right of fax. You can click that. And in there, give us the phone number or fax number you'd like to send the fax to. Choose a cover page if you'd like. There is a preview option if you'd like to see what they look like. You can include a note if you did select a cover page. This is not required, but it's a nice little touch. And then you can attach your files. You can attach multiple files as well, so long as the total file size is under the maximum that's listed here. Once you have everything filled out, you can choose to send later, selecting a date and time you'd like us to send that fax, or you can send now, and it'll send right away. For faxes, you'll see we've categorized them by faxes you've sent, received. New ones have that dot to the left, just like voicemails. Or faxes you've sent that failed to go through. It's pretty rare that this happens, but if it does, you do have the option to resend. But for faxes, just like everything else in this system, when you hover over an item, you've got additional actions, like being able to view that fax, downloading it to your computer, or forwarding it as a fax to someone else. Do you have any questions on faxing? All right. We're going to move on to video. Has everyone here used a video meeting platform before? Use that reaction option to let me know if you have. Give me a thumbs up or say yes if you have. Give me a sad face or say no if you haven't. Hands raised work too, whatever you guys prefer. But let me know if you have. Thanks, Stacy. All right, so it looks like some of you have. The good news is if you haven't, it's super intuitive. If you select video, you'll see you have the option to start an instant meeting. You can schedule a meeting for a later date or time, or you can join a meeting that someone else scheduled and you need to attend. If you schedule a meeting, you can use our system to choose the title, date, time, and duration, as well as specific meeting settings based on your preference or your business needs. You have the option here under Schedule Using for what system you'd like to use to schedule. I have Outlook as my calendar, but I could use Google, or I can just use Meeting Info so I can get the details I need to copy into an invite. But everything you see here is what someone might need to join my video meeting. And they can join from any platform. They don't have to be on RingCentral. So don't worry about this being internal only. You can join from anywhere on any device. When you're in our video meeting platform, it's actually really easy to use. And I'm going to drag our meeting on screen so we can talk about some of these controls. Now, I am the host of our meeting, meaning I'm the person who scheduled it. So I have a few options that you might not see. But some things you will see on your screen are, of course, you can mute and unmute. You can turn your camera on and off. And if you do turn it on, we've got virtual backgrounds for you, which we all know is fun. You have the option to share your screen, and when you are sharing, you do get a small little preview so you can see exactly what others are seeing. And there's the ability to annotate so you can draw on screen to point out areas of importance. If I forgot someone, I have the option to invite additional people. And I can manage those who have joined by going to participants. So for instance, taking a look at Alicia. Actually, I'm going to pick on Anita here. Sorry, Anita. It's not personal, I promise. Maybe Anita is hot micing. She's talking without realizing it. I could actually mute her by clicking on this, or turn off her camera by clicking on this. And I can do that because I'm the host of the meeting. I also have additional controls like muting everyone or asking people to unmute. And you'll see I can even clear reactions here. I see reactions when they do show up as well. You all discovered the chat. Some of you might have noticed there is the option to chat privately too. So maybe you wanted to ask me a question, but didn't want to let the whole team know you had that question. You can send that to me privately and I'd be the only person who saw it. As a host, I can also block people from chatting if it's being a distraction. Of course, we've talked about reactions, but there's also a record option. I'm already recording. And we even have breakout rooms if you want to allow your meeting participants to collaborate amongst themselves in small groups. There are a few additional settings under More, for example, allowing closed captions as well. If you did record your meeting, that recording does take some time to process, but when it does, it'll be available here under My Recordings. And for any of your recordings, you have the ability to share those with your colleagues or download them to your computer. So again, fairly similar to most other meeting platforms you might have used if you've had the opportunity to experience them before, but if not, it's super intuitive. Any questions on video? All right. Then we're going to take a look at our last category today, and that is settings. We looked at this earlier, but now we're going to focus in on those phone settings because these are the most critical. And we're going to look at the first option here, which says call handling. Really, everything you might need is here. So I'm going to select edit. This section helps us determine what happens when someone calls you. Specifically, if they call you during your work hours or after your work hours. So for those of you who will be having the mobile app, this is going to be particularly beneficial for your work-life balance. You can edit that work schedule here, choosing the days of the week you work and the times each day. So maybe I leave early on Thursdays for happy hour, for instance. Well, my work schedule will be a little different on that day, and that's totally fine. Once you have a schedule, you get to determine what happens for incoming calls and calls you missed. For incoming calls, by default, they ring in order, meaning they're going to ring in the order listed here. In my case, first, they'll ring first my desktop and mobile apps. And if I don't answer them, then the call will move to my desk phone. I could reorder those if I wanted, having it ring my desk phone first. I could also choose to have it ring all at once if that's my preference, and everything just rings until I answer. You can also customize your experience by adjusting that ring duration. For example, with the apps, I have that maximized so I can demonstrate an incoming call for you guys without it ending. But you can choose really any time frame that works best for you. You can even choose to not have a particular device ring. For example, on my real account, I work from home. I don't want my desk phone ringing because it'll make my dog bark for a good 30 minutes. So I can turn off ringing here, but that desk phone is still assigned to me, so I can still use it to make calls when I want, but it won't ring when people call me. This section is also where I can add additional phone lines for call flip or just for call forwarding. Maybe I want to have calls forward to my home phone line. I have the ability to add that in manually. A lot you can customize here. I recommend experimenting with it to make sure it's set up in a way that works best for you. But once you've set up your incoming calls, we need to talk about what happens if you don't answer. And you'll see by default, those calls go to voicemail. You can change that if that's needed based on your role. But if you do want it to go to voicemail, you'll see the option to set your voicemail greeting. We have a default greeting for you, but you can select edit to record, or going back to the question from Renee earlier, you do have the ability to import your voicemail greeting if you've already got one you love. This is also where you can set up your voicemail PIN if you don't know what that PIN is and want to use your desk phone to check your voicemails. You have those options for during your work hours. And then after work hours, by default, we've got it set to not ring your devices and just go straight to voicemail. But again, you can make adjustments based on your personal preference. Guys, that's it for our extension settings, and that's it for the material we had to review today. What questions do you have? I know it's a lot of material. All right. Well, hopefully that means you're feeling pretty good after today's session. But if you do have questions come up, especially as things get started, I want you to have the resources you'll need to get those questions answered. Of course, you have your internal team, but RingCentral also has support for you. I've shared in the chat 4 additional links, 2 of which I've already shared. One is for the training dashboard, one's for that phone quick guide. But I also like to point out the university site that has that online training. We have both basic and advanced courses for you. And then we have a support site that has a search function. So to Olivia's question earlier, you could just type in something like paging and you'll get instructions on how to set up paging and use it. So that's a great resource as well. Oops, sorry, I got click happy there. Shirley has asked, is there default time for call your schedule or does it have to be customized? So for your work schedule. So that's actually dependent on how things are set up on the back end by your organization, Shirley. Darren, do you know how your users' hours are set currently, if they are set at all?
We haven't discussed that, but we have 24/7 work schedules, so it's going to be difficult to default something.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So I would recommend for those of you that need to have a work schedule on file, just make sure you double check it to have it set to something that works for you. All right, everyone. The last link I'm going to share is actually for me. I would love your feedback on today's training. Positive, constructive, or otherwise, feedback is always helpful, and it only takes about 30 seconds. So if you have a moment to complete that survey, I'd really appreciate it. But that's everything we have time for. I want to thank you all so much again for your time and attention. I hope you found today helpful. For Darren and Gino, I'll get the recording of today's session up on the Google Drive by close of business tomorrow. But I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.